Another edition of Riding Home. Dean Legge, Ryan Curley. We're about 10 days into Georgia's practice. We're going to hear from Kirby Smart a little bit later today. But, Ryan, we've seen a few practices now. I wanted to go over kind of a few things. It's riding home. You're not in a car, and I'm not either, but you're about to get back in your car.
About
Where
to.
do you Where do you think the Dogs are right now as far as all of this is concerned? And the season is going to be here quicker than people realize. I think we're only 3 weeks from the kickoff with Oregon.
Yeah, there's 3 Saturdays until they play a meaningful football game. 21
Very,
days, and they're
very
and they're
meaningful.
playing. Yeah, and they're playing in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Um, they're not going to have it all together until a couple weeks into the season. They got to figure out, especially that's look, that's I
Okay.
don't think that's a crazy statement.
No.
They lost a lot. They lost a lot of players on this, and I'm more so talking about the defense. They lost a lot of players on that defense. I think it's going to take them a couple weeks to figure out what their real personnel is from the bits and pieces that you and I have seen. It's not completely clear who the quote unquote starting 11 is. We know that they rotate a lot of guys and that changes things a little bit, but I think there's still things they have to figure out for themselves. And corner opposite of Keely Ringo is something that I looked at today, but are these linebackers fast enough? Are these linebackers instinctual enough? I mean, they have a lot of questions that I don't think are going to be answered until they actually start playing real games.
Well, that's why they have the games, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's the whole point here. A lot of questions about the defensive side of the ball. Um, and that's the thing from what I've seen is, if you want to have questions about this team, it's the defensive front seven. I think everything else inside the program, it, it's completely reasonable to ask questions, Ryan. I'm not sure that there aren't already answers. I mean, who's the backup quarterback? Looks like Carson Beck. Who are the running
Yeah.
backs who are going to get the most carries? Kendall and Kenny look like more likely than not. Are they deep enough at receivers? Looks like at tight ends, totally loaded. Uh, Todd Monken said that they could be special on the offensive line. Agree. What do we now? We got Jack Panesley back. We're looking at a punting situation where you've got. I think that's a question. I don't know that there's not an answer and a positive one. When you just look around the board, I like the way the DBs look personally. Of course, DBs always look good when they're running around out there. But I do. I think are we being too are we asking too many questions about the front because we don't know what's going on there? We know some of it. You're returning Robert Beal, you're returning Nolan Smith, you're returning Jalen Carter. That's three of the seven. And if it's not Robert Beal, then you're talking about someone's beating him out, which would likely be Chaz Chambliss. You're not talking about a deficiency of ballers in that group. But we don't know what the inside linebackers very specifically are. They fast enough? If it's Tresman Marshall, the answer is yes, no question. That guy can really run. He's
Yeah.
not as fast as N'Kobe, but I think that what you talked about is a good question. I mean, that was the power of a season ago, and like three of those guys were were first round draft picks. I think, and
Of
Devontae
which group? Oh, yeah,
of
yeah.
the front
Yeah.
seven. I mean, so if my math's right, so and then also, Adam Anderson is not in the program anymore. They lost him as well, but that happened during the season. So I think to me they have the players. Um, what we don't know is how will it be for those guys when the band is playing, and what will it be like when you have logos on your helmet and real silver britches on? And we won't know that until Oregon. But if they lose to Oregon, something wacky has happened. That's what I think.
Yeah. So, well, what you said a couple, I guess when we were together last week, if it was Oregon, that's probably Kirby's fault. I would
No
agree with that.
question.
It would
And
be
I
a
don't
coach
think
because they're just better than Oregon.
they
They are.
are.
They are.
No question.
And they're better than every team that's on their 12-game schedule.
Yes.
So
That we know
if
of now.
as it stands now, certain people like to talk about Tennessee uh, in a very fun way, a very interesting way, but I don't know if they're that good. We'll see. I think it's a fast defense again.
Well, then,
It's just there's just different names and numbers. Uh, I still think it's a really fast and talented defense, and I think it's a better offense. If we're putting it in really simple terms, I think it's a deeper offense. Now, Arian Smith, something to talk about. We don't
well,
know
what
how
did
long he's going to be out, but
let's just
at this point, what have they really gotten from him? All right, let's be really blunt about Arian Smith. They haven't
okay,
gotten anything from him outside of two deep balls in his
right.
entire career at Georgia. I can count on two or three fingers how many times he made an impact. And this is no hate for Arian Smith, and that was one of them right there. And it was last season. The other one, I believe, was in the Peach Bowl against Cincinnati.
Cincinnati.
The two plays in my head. So him being out of the picture, for me, nothing really changes because you never really
Right.
had an impact from him. So I wouldn't say that's a freak out moment. It's really unfortunate.
They
It is
lost George
unfortunate because
Pickens last year.
yeah, and they won the whole
What
thing.
are
I
we
mean, he played
doing?
in 4 or 5 games, and he didn't
But
really
the
play that
receivers,
much.
Ryan. But the receivers.
They're stacked. They're stacked, no matter what. Even if they
No,
lost one more,
they lost the receivers, Ryan. They lost the receivers, Paul.
they
Am I
still
too
have
loud?
they still have good players. Listen, Karis Jackson was not a healthy Karis Jackson last year. I think he's
Blaylock.
healthy now. Blaylock is healthy. Those are two additions in a sense. I think AD Mitchell takes another step. AD Mitchell's a future NFL guy. I think
Oh,
so. You agree? Yes
no,
or no? I think he's that
I'm
good.
not smart enough to know about that with receivers.
Well,
Just
just
being
from
straight
just
up.
from what we watch, and then
I'm not
what ends
saying
up
no.
happening, I think
No,
he's an NFL guy.
I want to make sure I'm very clear here. What I'm saying to you is I am not smart enough at all, and I'm not being facetious to know. I don't know that. It sure seems like he could be, but do I know that immediately? I'm not. I don't know that, right? I mean, is is Warren McClendon an NFL player? Yeah, to me. Nolan, yeah. I mean, like, so they got guys, Keeley, but I'm not being sarcastic or whatever. I mean, I just don't know enough about receivers. I don't.
Oh, okay, okay.
I don't
I
know
thought
enough
I
about
thought
receivers, man. If they're not
uh
AJ Green and George Pickens and it's not obvious, I have a harder time saying. Like
uh
Jermaine Burton's going to play in the NFL. You know, the question
yeah.
is, how long will he play in the NFL? Yada yada yada. You know, I don't know.
Okay. Well,
Hey,
in that
what? Let
case,
me.
I think AD Mitchell is going to play in the NFL, and
Well,
that's what I'm
I think
saying.
you're right about that. I don't think there's much question about that. I know it was limited today, but what did you see, if anything, during the before the scrimmage?
I think my biggest takeaway from the very little we were given was it looks like Lassiter is going to start
Opposite Keeley,
opposite of Keeley. That's
right?
my
That's
takeaway,
not a stunning
but it's not a stunning thing.
revelation.
I think that Nyland Green is more physically impressive, but that doesn't mean he's a better corner. So, but it looks like Lassiter is their number two. William Poole is actually not in the cornerback drills today. So
Like
um,
in the corner drills or the
I mean,
DB
like
drills?
there was like a big group of DBs, and it was a little. Man, this was one of those things where it was like, but there
I
were
love that
corner,
look. I love
there
that
were
look. He's just
corners, there were corners, and then there were kind of safeties, and then like the hybrid DBs were mixed together. And William Poole and Javon Bullard were over there with the Malachi Starks of the world and the Christopher Smith and them.
see. I think
So
Malachi Starks could be a really good player. I mean, he should play in the NFL. Let me get to this real quick. Hey, look, yeah, definitely have fewer than 10% of these left. Make sure you're picking up DAWGSTRUCTION. We just had an order while we were on. I've referenced DAWGSTRUCTION a lot. We're getting to the point where I'm going to be mailing a lot of these out in a couple of days. You get the preview magazine with it for now. So order now before I run out. It is possible that they're gone by the end of the week. They're going out to subscribers this week, annual subscribers. You think this guy, number 5, could be a really good player for Georgia and beyond? I think if AD Mitchell, it's going to be tough, man, to deal with AD, this guy, etc. There's no
you know what I
way,
think is important about AD Mitchell? I think him and Stetson have good chemistry,
no doubt about
and I
that.
think they have a good relationship. We saw Stetson go to him what 4 or 5 times a row in a drive against Tennessee. There's trust there. There's trust between Stetson and AD Mitchell, and
Well,
from a Georgia standpoint, He's going to matter a lot.
Well, they're a little bit bros, right? I mean, you and I saw.
You
Oh,
think?
you weren't
Yeah.
there. You weren't
I
there.
wasn't there, but
You were
I
not
was
there.
told
Yeah. So I mean,
secondary source.
sorry. Well, it's not. It was first person for me.
You were
I
primary there.
I can legitimately confirm. I can report. I mean, yeah, those two rode down together to an event that I was at, and I got to talk to AD just for a little bit there. And yeah, they're close. I mean, you can see that, and that moment right there, the Tennessee game after the Tennessee game. So I was running with Stetson, shooting him, and like AD kind of flagged us both down to stop us. I don't know AD Mitchell, okay, but he flagged us down to make sure that that picture was taken at Tennessee. And when you look at where AD stacked up a season ago, he started appearing during the spring because of injuries to Jermaine and George Pickens. And you started hearing about it a little bit with AD Mitchell, AD Mitchell. And then all of a sudden, we get to spring game, and it was good and bad. But boy, as the season went on, man, he really got a lot better. One thing that Kirby was talking about, I guess, have we had Kirby twice or just once? Just once, right? I'm getting
I think,
confused.
yeah,
Yeah. Anyway,
once.
so one of the times lately that we've seen Kirby, because I've seen him in three different places. Anyway, he was talking about how we need guys to grow up by the seventh game, which is like around Florida, Tennessee, Kentucky this year. Uh, Probably more around Florida than the others, but um, that's what happened with AD a season ago. You know, he showed it a little bit, I think, against Carolina. I can't remember, but
He had a deep touchdown from JT
from
Daniels in
JD,
that
yeah,
game.
JT. Um, I don't mind where this team is at all. I don't. But,
What do you
you
mean by
know,
you don't mind? What do you mean by you don't
so
mind?
I think right now they've gone from being the number two betting favorite to the number three. I think somebody named Ryan Jordan, who's been around the block for a while on our message board, is certainly no dummy, pointed out correctly, I think, today that, you know, there is an obsession with scoring in football, and that often equates to you being considered a favorite. Um, and and I agree with him. And what I will add to that is, and when we've seen this from Gene Chiswick, we've seen this from Dabo, we've seen this from, but Gene Chiswick was the first one. You don't have to win the way everybody else wins. You can win however you want to win. And a season ago, Georgia came into the season number five. People did believe in JT Daniels. They thought Georgia's offense would be better. What they didn't know was how dominant Georgia's defense is, because Ryan, for the last 10 years, all we've heard about, and understandably, is the quarterbacks. Johnny Manziel goes into, you know, Jameis, Nick Marshall. In 14, it was, uh,
Mariota.
well, you did
Oh,
have
you talking about in
Mariota.
the conference? You
I
talking about
just
in the
mean,
conference?
I just mean, generally speaking, the quarterback play has really gone higher as we've traveled through this past decade. Then you got Watson, the guy that's the Philadelphia Eagles quarterback, Hurts, and then Tua, Trevor, Justin. You know, and
Burrow.
it's Joe Burrow, who was the best of all of them,
Mac
and
Jones.
then Mac Jones, and we have forgotten that there's another part of football that's being played, and that Kirby doesn't care how he wins. And Todd Monken's pretty clear about that. He just wants us to play smart, is what Todd said. Well, you know, I say this to you. I don't know if I say this to you often, but I know I've said this to Matt quite a bit through the years. Do we care how we make money at Dog Post necessarily? No. I mean, we have certain standards, right? But we don't care where the money comes from. I mean, it can from any number of different ways. We're not going to be attached to any one thing, right? So there's different ways to make money. There's different ways to make, you know, to win at football. And Kirby can do it however he wants to do it. And we have become infatuated with Ohio State, which I think will win the national championship. I've just lifted them up, Brian. You know what I'm about to do? I'm gonna slam them to the ground. They got to do it. They got their ass whipped by Michigan last year. Utah ran up and down the field on them. I think
Wait, did you just predict Ohio State to win it all this year?
at
Is that what you
some
just did?
point they will. At some point they will
Oh,
win the
it's
national championship.
all
This
right.
year, I don't know. I mean, they certainly are not losers, but we shouldn't get so uh, obsessed with their scoring that we forget that they are not great on defense. Everybody has taken their turn, pooping all over Clemson, which is fine, but um, their defense is really good. If they figure out their offense, they're going to be hard to deal with. Why are we so cool with assuming Ohio State will figure out their problem on defense, and we're not ready to say Clemson will figure theirs out on offense? They got a five-star quarterback or two on that roster. Why are we so ready to give Ohio State the benefit of the doubt? And the other Ryan is correctly saying it's because they score, and he's right.
Well, here's I have a couple notes from that. Georgia's going to score
I
a
know,
lot.
yeah,
So
no doubt.
if we're talking, they're going to score a lot. It does. It's never mattered to me as a media member, as a fan, in any way. The teams that I care about, how they win, I just want them to win. So that's something that I can't put myself in that category. That I think probably the majority of people are. They do. They want to blow people out
Well, the
by
Gators are
by
a great
going in a
example.
shootout.
The
Yeah,
Gators are a great example of this. They want to win by scoring. Okay. And
yeah.
I think Alabama and Georgia folks at the end of the day would rather win with defense. But the truth is, it doesn't matter how you win, so long as you win.
No, and last year they won by being really good on both sides of the ball and being excellent on the defensive side of the ball.
Correct.
So it was you do credit more to the defense last year. That's not
They were
stupid. That
better.
people are right about that. They were the
Yeah.
best defense in college football, and it wasn't close.
Yes.
And but they were still phenomenal on offense.
They were
I think
very
a top
good.
10 offense is a
They
is a
were.
is a pretty great offense. So I do think they're going to be better this year. I think a lot of people think they're going to be better this year on offense. I mean, it really could be the best offense in the sport. It could. It has that potential. If you're giving it a ceiling and a floor, its ceiling is one.
Okay.
And
Well, they're
I
already
think
at 10. But let
listen,
me
I think they're the deepest offense from a weapon standpoint across the board. When you look at running backs, tight ends, and wide receivers, I don't know that you can
their
go
weakest
find a
spot,
better.
their weakest spot is running back, right?
And then it's not weak.
Well, it's all relative. I don't,
It's all real, yeah. I
right.
mean, but
And
they're
I
still
don't
one of
mean
the.
that they are the weakest in that particular thing doesn't mean that they are weak. I mean, that is their weakest spot. I don't know how else to categorize it.
I
Or the
mean, if
better
you're looking at
vocabulary.
running back
I went to school
rooms,
in DeKalb County, man. I don't have a vocabulary like y'all.
if it
All right.
who's y'all, who's us, who are you throwing
Everyone
me?
watching this.
Oh, I thought you were talking to me.
I had a
I was like,
public school education,
oh, me
in
too.
DeKalb County. Yeah, well,
Well,
I think the
so
running backs are the spot that is not as strong. I mean, you got tight ends that are as deep as, I mean, that thing's crazy. The offensive line is probably number two, which is saying something. I would say then probably the quarterback. Or I don't know who's better, the quarterbacks or the wide receivers. It's hard to distinguish. I mean, to separate those two. But of all of the sort of five positions on the offensive side of the ball, yeah, the running backs are the weakest.
okay.
Which is to say, now, could they be the strongest? No, I don't think they can. But I do think that the two top guys could combine for. I don't think them going for 1,700 yards in a 12-game season is out of the question at all.
On the
Uh,
grounds.
on the ground, though, just Kenny and
Okay,
Kendall,
okay.
just those two for 17.
So
Okay,
what?
I don't think that's out of the question.
That would be like 850 a piece if you split it 50-50.
Somebody's going to get 1,000, and the other about 700 ish.
That sounds about right. That sounds about right.
And my,
I think Kendall will probably have more rushing yards
I agree.
because I mean I think you could legitimately get like a 500 season from McIntosh, something like that.
You could.
Well, I think they're going to treat him. I think they're going to use him in a way that they use DeAndre Swift, maybe with less carries.
Fewer,
But I
yeah.
think if you,
Sorry, man.
I
Hey,
know. That's listen.
we we
We're not
got
all
rules
perfect.
here.
Some of us have imperfections, and
I don't know what you
but
mean.
some of us have very few imperfections,
Very
and that's
few, very few.
and that might be one of them. Yeah, I mean, no, it's not the best running back room they've had, but it's
No, it's
still a
not.
really good one. And I looked at a lot of running back rooms recently, and there are ones I'd say are probably better than them in college football just because they're top heavy with superstars. But they're still one. I mean, they're one of the 5 to 8 best.
But could we be wrong? Could I be wrong with where I place him at the bottom of the offense? Right? I mean,
No,
could
I
I?
think that's fair. I It would be tight ends one.
Definitely.
I think you'd put the line at two, maybe.
That's what I would do. But then you've got the quarterbacks, man. You got four quarterbacks that are legit there. I mean, the only guy that's not won a state championship or a national championship is Gunnar Stockton, and he broke every record that Trevor
Yeah,
and Jake and Deshaun did not. So or did whatever. So
yeah.
uh,
He broke their records for. He broke a lot of
Raven
their records.
Raven was never going to win the state championship. I don't think, but Prince Avenue should have, and they did, thanks to Vandergriff. And then Carson Beck's school had, I think, no business winning the state championship in 7A, the biggest classification in Florida, and they did. So you've got guys that have won a lot. You've
They're
got
winners. They're all
they have
winners.
won. I mean, Gunner might have lost
No, that's what I'm saying. He
seven
didn't win a state
games.
championship, but it's got to be on less than two hands how many games he lost in high school. So, I mean, dude, we're gonna do some research on that
No, there's no.
soon. Not
If you
right
can
now.
count it, it is fewer.
All right.
If it's sand, see, this is. I'm not trying to embarrass you, but like you should correct me if I make that mistake. It's just what it is. We're Ryan. You
That's
you
getting screenshotted
you
later.
can't, you
This
you
it's
can't.
getting blasted out there.
You like that? Uh, you know why I do that is so other people won't take my cup. All right, I need to stay hydrated. This is riding home. I must be
Your
hydrated for
daughter doesn't
this.
want that cup.
She never takes it. I don't know why. Yet she's probably too old for it now. Too good for it. But
Too
anyway,
good for it.
she's probably too
Dean
good
Leggy
for it.
is not too good for My Little Pony.
I'm not. I never had My Little Pony. I was more of a GI Joe guy myself. But
Mm.
I have to say that there were many disappointing Christmases where I didn't get Snake Eyes. I don't think
Oh,
they made Snake Eyes after a while, but I'm really getting in the weeds here, so we're gonna
yeah.
pivot here. Uh, I don't know what Kirby's gonna say. We'll have it for you. Well, y'all will have already watched it by the time y'all see this, but I do think
Yeah.
that I like where this team is at, man. The one thing I'm gonna watch is for that. I just don't think Oregon's a great matchup for Georgia. I think if Georgia were opening this game with opening the season with, I'm not even going to say Clemson because I don't think that's a great offensive line over there. So I don't know how great that matchup will be. But if you start talking about Ohio State's O line, Alabama's offensive line's got to get better too, man. Kentucky would not be a lot of fun for Georgia to start this season with at all. And I think that they're not starting with Kentucky, but they're starting with something somewhat similar to that, and that will get us to where we will have the ability to see, are these guys legit or not? This Georgia defense, this front seven. If it sounds like I'm questioning them, I mean they can take it that way if they want to kind of get motivated or whatever. But I mean,
I know Bo Nix is not someone that has had a lot of success against Georgia, but I do think it's really good for them to have to chase after somebody like that week one. I mean, that's going to tell us a lot about how fast these pass rushers are.
listen,
So,
man, that guy, if he's getting chased, they're getting beat. He needs to play quarterback. And
oh, well, we haven't seen him do that against Georgia.
who's been the most successful quarterbacks against Georgia, amazingly, have been these three guys, and it's been in order, okay? Joe Burrow, who was mobile enough, let me tell you. Uh, Kyle
Trask.
Kyle Trask, whose name I've forgotten. and the quarterback at Alabama in 2020.
Mac
Those were
Jones.
those guys were typically from the pocket guys. Burrow and Bryce Young are a little bit similar in that they're more mobile, obviously, than Trask and Mac Jones. But it's been guys who stick in the pocket, go, play quarterback, etc. Now, those guys have some pretty good running backs too, so it all adds up. But they're not
There's some
dealing.
pretty great receivers as well.
Yeah, they're not dealing with Joe
If you,
Burrow.
there's a lot of NFL receivers among those quarterbacks.
And those guys,
Stars.
those guys are those guys not all first round guys?
Pitts, Jefferson, Chase,
Trask,
Judy, Devontae
Trask. No,
Smith.
well, no.
Oh, you're
There's
talking about the quarterback.
Burrow
Trask was a
was
second
one,
round guy.
right? He's the only one that was a second round guy, though. I
Yeah,
mean,
Mac
Young will
Jones
be
was 15th overall. So
Joe
um,
Burrow, Young,
Joe Burrow went first. Yeah.
right? So, is that who they're dealing with? No. All right. Hey, thanks for watching. We'll see you over on the website. Dean and Ryan.